Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again for School of Fish Art Stream. J-Man wants Gatling gun on the end of his tail. Oh my goodness. J-Man says the tail's where you put all the heavy artillery. Yeah. Said he used to have a howitzer on the end of his tail. I was muted. Hello, everybody. It is your ever-loving Uncle Fish back again on Thursday mornings with my Thursday morning Patreon-only School of Fish episode. Hopefully, we're going to have some folks jump in here in a minute and hang out with us and see what's going on. Hope everybody is having a good day today. Hope everything is coming across clearly. Seemed to be coming across to YouTube. I couldn't get the Patreon one to load up right for me from there. So, you know what? Let me check on the phone. I didn't think about that. I can look on the phone and see if it's coming across on Patreon, which is cool. Man, it's amazing to me that we got all this stuff just at the freaking fingertips here, man. Fingertip, fingertip. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I can see it there. A little bit of a delay, but that's okay. It's fine enough for the ladies that we date. Um, Hope everybody's doing okay. I'm going to continue on with my show as I always do, whether I can see anybody here or not, because I'm a firm believer in you always do your best no matter what's going on. You always put on the best show, whether there's one person watching or there's 100 people watching. You always do your best job on a book, whether it's going to be sold to 10 people or 10,000 people. So I'm a firm believer in doing a good job. So that's what I'm going to do one way or another, whether anybody remembers to come in and hang out or not. But hopefully they do. I'd love to see everybody. Love to hang out, have some good times, and visit, chit chat, and whatnot with the Kyrens of the world, and the Katies, and the Nicks, and whatnot. All those upper class kind of folks that want to hang out and work with your Uncle Fishy. I'm going to go ahead and show off some of what we've been working on lately. I'm working on the Savage Source book for Caw. I finished up the Sentinels, a book that I had to get done for my client, and now I'm back to working on my stuff. And turn on the page here so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, we're not looking at that yet. No. This is Sparrow. She's one of the characters that's going to be coming up soon. She's one of the bounty hunters that's going to be showing up before long. And I'm working her entry for the Savage Source book. So we've got her here, causing demolition and whatnot. We've got her main profile pic here, bigger and clear and higher resolution. Um, thanks. Hold on. Let me see that. That's not Karen or Katie. That's that's somebody else. That's not one of the big guys. That's one of the other folks. Uh, Copy that, and I'm just gonna real quick send that out to some folks. Send the link itself just to make sure that the folks that might be interested get a chance to see. Uh, to see Katie, just in case. Goodness, I can't remember what this is on. Sarah's Katie's on. Karen, thanks. How did I forget? I can't believe I'm forgetting somebody. That's not like me at all. That's not like your Uncle Fishy at all to forget somebody. It's not like me to have brain damage. Forget things. Not me. Yeah. Dana. Dana's probably working. That's why I can't remember. She's probably at work. But I'm gonna send it to her nonetheless. Just so she's good. Cause, wouldn't be nice not to. Oh, look at that. We got all kinds of folks popping in because I'm over there trying to make sure that I'm sending it to everybody. Good morning, Kate. Glad to see you. Good morning, Kyron. My audio sounds off. Man. Yeah, no, it wasn't Sarah. It was Dana. I forgot about that. Sarah's an amazing person, but she hasn't joined the exclusive club yet. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised neither yet. But just a matter of time. You know how it is. I'm glad y'all are here. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the chat on so that I y'all up there in the corner. But yeah, all right. Now that I know who I'm talking to, we've got this character Sparrow, who's one of the bounty hunters that's going to be showing up, and this is her parts in the source book. I've been working on the entries for the source book with Red Tail, Snowbeard, and the Mighty Caw, and all of that. Getting all the stuff put together, going between different programs because that one's just set up so much better. Desktop publishing, you know, it just worked there. Okay, I'm getting messages from people. I might end up having to. I'm gonna close my old Facebook down because that's just gonna keep ringing in my ear and driving me nuts. Um, so trying to focus. Been a lot going on this morning. So that Sparrow I worked at last night, drew it while I was hanging out with Karen. This is the overarching bad guy for the Caw series. It's gonna be a little. We're gonna get some glimpses of him in the next issue and the next issue, but like he's the big that's coming down the road. But I want to introduce him because he's a character that's going to be showing up in Caw, and he's a character that's also going to be showing up in Green Zone. But this is something for those of y'all. No, it's not daylight savings time. Not yet. That villain is going to be coming later. Um, but this starts out as Xander Zion, the Quantum Man, in Green Zone, and he's like a supervillain in the world of Green Zone. He's essentially like he's a cross between like Lex Luthor and Doctor Manhattan from Watchmen. Like he's super powerful. Quantum Man existence is spread throughout the timeline and the universe, which makes him a very powerful villain in the days of 2023, but also gives him particular insight into what's coming in the future. And he knows like the fall of man is coming and all of this stuff is he can see throughout his long life timeline and sees the stuff that's coming for that and gets ready for it. And by the time Cog gets to this planet like a million years later, he's still around and he's still kicking up dust. He's essentially down to almost basically just a head in a jar at this point with a cybernetic body. But and he's built this complex into the side of a waterfall because he knew it would be one of the few things that would still be moving in the future that could give him enough power to power this thing. And he's got this base hidden in this waterfall full of machinery and stuff that was purely designed just to keep him alive and keep him in one piece, keep his body contained over the years because he slept for centuries while he was waiting for the world to catch back up with him and the world to get repopulated again. And so when he comes back out, now he's in a world full of savages and stuff, and most of technology has been lost, and the technology and the powers that he has are, make him a super powerful god in this world. Oh, absolutely, man. All the best people got the bald head, Kyrie. And I'm so shaggy today. My my razor was dying on me, and I didn't have time to. By the time I found the cord and started charging it, there wasn't enough time for it to get charged before I got on here, and I didn't want to get on with a patchy head, half shave. So I had to go a little stubbly. I hope you can forgive me. I usually try and keep myself to a higher standard than that, Karen. But you know, I don't want to offend your sensibilities or whatnot. But so this is the dude that is going to be the overarching villain, and he's the Quantum Man in Green Zone. I want to keep Quantum in the name, as now he's like the terrorizing ruler of the world. I don't know if I haven't quite decided if I want to make. Sometimes I say I want to make it King Quantum or the Quantum King, and other times it sounds a little Peter Parker, Peter Parker, Happy Hogan kind of ring to it. I don't know. What do y'all think? You think the Quantum King is a good idea, or King Quantum, or what do y'all think I should do? Because that's one of the amazing parts of being on the inside group with the School of Fish Patreon only. You get to help make decisions like this that are going to end up impacting the book and the future of Ka and my ability to feed my kids. So, I take part, get excited, kick out some suggestions. Maybe we'll use it. So I've broken this page down here into a few different panels so that I can draw some of the stuff that's going on. I want to do a cool picture because he's got such a long lifespan. I want to show one image at least of him fighting with some of the superheroes and stuff of Green Zone, just to like show that this does kind of tie in. And then other stuff about like the base that he's been sleeping in all this time, and uh the kind of condition that he's in. King, I agree. I'm leaning that way. I gotta say. Oh, it's the time to ride, Fishy said. So we gonna get in here and we're gonna start drawing. And if we got any questions or anything about what I'm doing, be sure to pipe up and holler them out, because I will. I'm happy to get derailed talking about whatever, except for daylight savings time. I tell you, the more me and Kyron got to talking about that, we got some pretty cool ideas going on. I'm actually pretty excited about that. That's going to be pretty cool. That's going to be pretty cool indeed. So I want to do something that shows the giant machine that like keeps his energy focused, because of his quantum powers. It's very easy for, when he's tired and relaxing, his body just kind of wants to spread throughout the multiverse and just, you know, dissipate throughout the universe and, be everywhere all at once. And so he's got a lot of equipment built to keep his energy focused here while he, quote, sleeps. And so I want like a giant Kirby esque, you know, over engineered machine that is purely focused at, keeping his quantum energy focused here in this place, which is keeping essentially his head is all that's left. Now, at some point, he's going to get a power up and manage to pull more of himself back together, and then he's going to be an absolutely terrorizing threat. But, you know, oh man. Speaking of terrorizing threat, Chiron has had me messed up for a couple of days now, it feels like. Maybe it's just been a day. It feels like a whole lot longer since that freaking bat question. That has, like, legit had me messed up. And because and his question was, for those that might not have seen it, was, if Batman can beat everybody, with enough time to prep, with enough prep time, can he beat Popeye when Popeye eats his spinach? And it made me really think about Popeye and his powers for a second. And it made me realize that Popeye is clearly nothing less than a reality warping Jinn or me or something. Quantum Monarch. It kind of sounds like a like a cosmic butterfly. Um, I dig the thought process, but the first I think about is a butterfly. Um, there might be something there though. Yeah, you can get me off on another idea. I actually have a character that a friend of mine plays in a role playing game that's essentially a cosmic butterfly. Uh, but it got me thinking about Popeye's powers, and like I said, he can warp reality and transmute matter with a touch. Now he might punch it, but you know, one punch to a tree can send it up in the air and have it come back as a fully furnished log cabin with a fire in the fire. And one punch to a cow can send it up in the air and have it come back to the ground as finished steaks and processed sausages and all of this stuff. Like that's not human. That is reality warping god level powers, and something like a genie or something would have. That's not normal. And this isn't a normal dude or even a super dude. This is this is crazy level of power. And then that got me wondering, like, well, what about the other characters? Because none of these characters like make any sense. Like, why on earth are all these guys willing to fight and die for scrawny little Olive Oil, who's like doesn't even look like she has bones because she's so floppy. Like, makes me wonder, is she some kind of Gorgon in disguise, like Medusa or something with the no bones, or is she a siren, or like, no? I went down the rabbit hole, man, thinking about all this stuff. But in the process, I realized one of the stories I was working on in the background, because I've always got a dozen stories kind of percolating, uh, kind of, sort of, in a very distant way, sort of reminded me of Popeye. I thought of that connection. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of interesting things popped up in my imagination of, like, if he was like a variant version of Popeye, that he would need something to power him up. And then I realized, oh, if we put these, MacGuffins in there that he can use to power himself up and make himself more powerful for a limited amount of time, but he's only got so many of them. So he's got to watch it. And what happens when somebody else steals them? And what happens when, he runs out, or they get stolen or broken, or all this stuff. And then suddenly, because of Kyron's weird little question that he asked that got me started down this thing, all of a sudden I'm at all kinds of layers to this, that goes to this other story that I'm working on, that I've so I always got to have something percolating in the background so that, there's a new hill to climb, new story to finish and whatnot. And it's gonna be a while before I ever get a chance to get to it, but I forgot what I was looking at when I looked. No, not already know that. Hang on his head tilted a bit more. He's almost like he's posed in a coffin or something. It's kind of because I want him to be like nearly dead. Not dead, but he's like dead asleep. Yeah, that, that works pretty good. And then we draw some of the servants here because he's trained when Quantum King here came out of hibernation the first time after having built this tower and then built this base into the side of Emperor rather than King. I've been thinking about Emperor. I've absolutely been thinking about that. I'm eating mini cheddars and now I have to pay the cheese tax to the dogs. The cheese tax. Anyway, so he builds this base into the side of a waterfall and then he basically goes to sleep for, like a couple thousand years to wait for the wars and the fall of man and stuff that he's been foreseeing for a while to come to pass. And, no point in wasting his time trying to change something that he realizes he's not going to be able to do anything about at this point. And when he awakens in his base that was in the middle of nowhere, he awakens to realize that now there's a whole civilization built at the bottom of this waterfall because source of clean water and stuff, and so the people that were surviving, you know quite the city built up here at the base of this waterfall. And he comes out and now like he's got all these amazing powers compared to them and can fly and can do all these wild things with technology and um that they've never seen before. And so he seems like a god to them and rules them as such, and he's trained some of his minions here from that civilization that sprung up down there to be like priests slash techs slash slaves. Like they serve him and they tend to the machinery and everything and keep everything running for him and stuff while he sleeps, and they only wake him up like when it's necessary. And so to them this place is a holy altar to their living god king. To him it's a high-tech lab that supports has his life support and stuff built into it. But so there's a little bit of like holy elements that they have added in of their worship and stuff to keep them organized. And he knows that if he keeps them worshiping, then they're not going to start thinking too critically. And as long as they think that he's so far above them, there's no point in even trying to fight or overthrow him. Then he doesn't have to worry about them like killing him in his sleep, which they could easily do if they thought it through for a second and gave it some critical thought. Because all this devices that they're here maintaining for him are what's keeping him in one piece and here on this planet. If they just destroyed those machines, he'd be done for. But like all good bad guys, he's more smoke and mirrors than he is actual power. And he's powerful, but he relies on the smoke and mirrors aspect. Keep everybody in line. and keep that power. And I really love the time aspect of this because, like, he has seen this coming for so long. Like, he knows that the man was coming. He knew that he was going to end up becoming the king of the world someday, which is what led him to trying to be a super villain. Like, let's make this happen faster, only to realize that he can't do that. It's going to happen when it happens. And he's always been able to see that the biggest threat to his rule is this savage and this savage birdman that's going to come someday. And so he's been trying to prep himself for a millennia, trying to prepare to fight this thing off. But in reality, if he just left him alone, he would have been fine. The only reason Kyle becomes his enemy is because the king keeps trying to take him out. If he would have just backed off and left him alone, he'd have been fine. God didn't come to start none, but he ain't gonna let it go once you do start it. God has no desire to be king, but if you're gonna try to make him bow to you and call you king, well, then now we got a problem. And now comes some stuff. Because God ain't got time for your foolishness. That's what Kyle says. Agrees with him, which is just empowering him to keep doing it. All right, we got one of those down. Now let's do an image of him being attached to his robot body. What I did before there. I just keep coming back looking for the proportions and stuff to see exactly where in all that mess his shoulder would be. Because I want to show that it is a cybernetic body up under this and make that clear. Underneath all the armor and the robes and the whatnots, that this is a cybernetic robot body that he's in. But also show that, like, his people dress him of this. Oh, I forgot to turn on a little background music. Silly fishy. Why'd you do that? Because you was jamming to your tunes earlier. copyrights and whatnot. Turning their headways so they're not looking directly at the God King. As he's coming over him. Getting into his body. Sometimes prophecy only happens because people are trying to stop it. That's the kind of thing I dig. You know, when you were so afraid of the prophecy that you ended up creating it yourself, you ended up making it happen, because I dig those kind of stories. Never look directly at the God King. That's what he tells the servants every day. Never look directly at the God King. He says sometimes you got to smite one or two. That keeps the rest in line, Karen says. And after all, isn't that what it's about? Keeping the rabble in line. Danny totally started the "You're Rich" joke, but I freely admit I have ran with it. It makes me so happy. I enjoy it so much. And when like Katie comes up with something funny and sends it to me, it's like, that castle's falling down. Kyron's servants haven't been on the job doing upkeep. Oh, I just freaking die. That is so funny. Because it's nothing for me to make myself laugh. But when you're making other people laugh too at the same joke, that's good times. When that joke's at Kyron's expense, even better. Love you, man. That's why I enjoy it so much. It's funny. His head needs to be bigger in that bowl. Which is the nice thing about working digitally. Been doing a little more traditional work lately, and I forget. Like, I forget in some ways how much fun the traditional stuff is, and I forget how much harder some of it is. Oh! Oh God, I love you so much. I'm almost thinking, like, should they be wearing blindfolds while they're dressing him? That might be too much. Looking away is probably enough, but it's a neat idea. Think of them having to ceremonially blind themselves. And then I want one dude in the back, like reading off a scroll of like what's been happening, giving him the update on his servants and his kingdom and what's been going on. And this is one of the sellout dudes that helps rule the other slaves while he gets to be a big shot. That's not quite, he's too small back there. Because I'm not working digitally, I don't have to erase him and redraw him. I can just grow him a little bit. I can just feed him a little spinach and he comes up so much bigger than everybody else also. And I need to show the device back here that he's come out of. That works pretty good, I think. Will I ever appear in one of your books as a very wealthy person with tons of servants? If you want to be, I will absolutely stick you in there as well. Absolutely. I would be glad to. I got a village leader, village elder that leads the town coming up soon. That I was like, ooh, Chiron would be really good for that part. But he really kind of gets punked out at a point by everybody and like really gets humbled. And like his daughter gets kidnapped and stuff, and he has to humble himself and come find Colin, beg him to save his daughter. And I don't know, I want that to you. That wouldn't be good. I'm doing a sketch of feral goats for someone, and I'm missing the digital ability to resize stuff. Oh God, I bet. Superheroes must have been so happy when stretchable fabric was invented. Cost of bursting out of your linen shirts all the time. Oh man. And like that's the kind of thing that I like to think about when I think through characters. And okay, see, Katie did it. Katie got me derailed. That's one of the things that I really like to think about when I'm designing characters and I'm drawing them is like, how do they get into their costumes? How do they wear their costumes? What are their costumes made of? Is it some thin, stretchy fabric that, they can hide underneath their clothing? Is it a whole nother suit that you gotta put on? Chiron don't want to be humbled. I don't doubt it. The 1% never do. But like, I'll draw something differently if it's, some super thin fabric that's supposed to be easily hidden underneath their clothing, or if it's like a regular outfit that they're wearing. Like in the Sentinels, the Grim Reaper is just wearing he's just wearing clothes basically with a hooded cape. So he's got pants with pockets on them and boots and laces and all that stuff. So his clothes are a lot more baggier. Absolutely. Katie is talented at derailing my thoughts. And then other people have, much tighter clothing. Some people have he's got this Dr. Quantum character that, has all these amazing powers. And I kind of think of his costume like he has boots and his wrists are wrapped and a big cape, but the rest of his costume I keep like super tight, no wrinkles or anything in the fabric. And I like to think of it as if he has, just manipulated the molecules of his clothing and turned it into this magical fabric that bends without leaving any, creases you don't want to see. And, just fits perfectly. And then he could it into his regular clothes again. It's like how I think through it. Where Grim Reaper is wearing like clothes you would buy off the rack. And then he has a speedster, Crimson Streak. Let me see if I can pull up a cool picture of Crimson Streak that doesn't give too much away. You know what I could do? I could pull up one from an older book. That's what I could do. If I was a smart man, Jenny, I'd pull up one from an old book. Jenny, and I wouldn't be giving too much away if I was a smart man. And let's see, is he even in this one? Okay, well, we can see him here. So Crimson Streak is his speedster, and like when I draw Crimson Streak, there are always seams in his clothes, and there's usually wrinkles around his neck, and it's folded. Like I like to think about Crimson Streak like he's actually wearing like off the rack kind of spandex. That's pretty tight overall, but when you move and bend, there's wrinkles and stuff in the corners. I like to think of Crimson Streak as wearing something regular like that you could actually get your hands on, as opposed to some super special magical, fiber made out of unstable molecules by Reed Richards that could never possibly exist, that doesn't wrinkle or fold and is just magically skin tight. Because of the way Crimson Streak's powers work. He really thought through, yes, Crimson Streak is a power company, absolutely. He really thought through how Crimson Streak powers work because some of the speedster caveats of like, the speed force and stuff bugged him like it bugs me. Crimson Streak doesn't actually run at hyperspeed. Crimson Streak is folding space. So, like, he is shortening the distance between here and there. So, when he takes the 3 steps to get there, it looks like he went to all of us. But to him, he just shortened it and jotted over there. So, he doesn't have to have a specially made fabric that can handle being at 1,000,000 miles an hour, because he's not going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He's running like a regular person would run, and he's just shortening the distance from here to there. So because of that, he doesn't need some crazy high friction, disperse all the energy flash meta fabric kind of costume. He could just wear regular clothes. He wears tight clothes so that they don't, flapping in the wind and whatnot, or get in his way or block his vision or anything. He wears goggles, so when he shrinks that distance, a bug that comes shrinking past doesn't, put his eye out. But because his powers work that way, I show him with a lot more wrinkles and folds and stuff in his clothes. And it's one of my favorite things is being able to draw a speedster that has clothes like that, because his powers work so uniquely. And that's just one little cool thing that I get to add to Crimson Streak in my own mythos of, how he works and stuff, because, he really sat down and we went over it. And so, you get all these little wrinkles and folds and things, and I just absolutely love it. I love it so much. I forgot Luis Rivera inked this for me. I was like, that doesn't look like my inks. I forgot, because in this is the first book I ever farmed out myself. And so I penciled it and then sent it to Luis to ink it for me, and then had Victoria color it, and came out pretty cool. I really liked working with Luis as an inker. We were talking about inkers, and I've had hit or miss experience with it in the past, but I liked working with him. His work tends to be a little stiffer than mine, but what he did was really tighten up some of my stuff and make it more consistent. And like when I draw a streak, I did not draw his pupils and stuff in there. I just draw shadows for his eyes that you can see through the heavy goggles. He put eyes in there. He brought lots of little details and stuff that I liked. I was glad that he did that. No junk drawing, but I have friends who call me Katie the Destroyer because I accidentally break everything I watch. I've always been like, that's part of why Bellamy is a character in Green Zone, is because I've always been so self-conscious of tearing stuff up and hurting people around me, because if I accidentally step on your foot, you're breaking a toe. And it's not just ow, it's oh my god, oh, what did you do? And so I've always been very sensitive about tearing stuff up. So I get the feeling. Like, I trip and fall down, I'm causing damage to stuff, and I'm causing collateral damage. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. We got time to work on some stuff. Now, what we need to do now that we got some of those bodies, know where things are going. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to make another raster layer and turn it blue. Now, I need to figure out what kind of ceremonial robes they're going to work in. So that's why I'm making another layer, so I can go over their bodies and design what it's going to look like. Because, I want it to have a priestly kind of feel to it, like monks or whatever, or nuns, or oh no, I just got another idea. All right, what if they had like a stiff habit kind of thing, and then like a hood over that? But this way I can work on another layer and play around with sketching stuff and not have to worry about messing up the other one. My friend's mom heard her call me and then said, "Oh, don't be mean. Oh, tell me that." And then said, "Oh, don't be mean." I then stepped backwards and knocked the clock off the wall and broke it by accident. Oh my god. Oh man, the amount of times I have torn up stuff in somebody else's house, especially small older homes, that have little bitty living rooms and tiny doorways, and then I'm a big dude, and just walking through is knocking stuff off the walls, and oh man, I resonate with that comment so badly. I like the idea of them having lots of ceremonial robes and layers to their stuff. I was even thinking about in the scene in the next book where they have to wake him up because the alarms are going off because a ship is getting close to their planet. Um, Alarms to start going off, and then the servants in this tomb of a giant laboratory uh suddenly start to panic and look at each other, and then have to strip down and wash themselves and put on the ceremonial robes and prepare themselves spiritually before they can go wake him up. And part of it is just stuff that he's instilled in them that they have to do, like cleaning themselves to so that they don't get funk and grease in equipment that keeps him alive and don't stink. But they've added over the generations all these layers to it, that it's now this deep religious practice, when a lot of it was just like preparing for a clean room or something, like taking off your old clothes so you're not bringing all kinds of dirt and goat hair and stuff in, cleaning yourself, putting on clean robes so that you don't put dirt and crap all into the machinery and end up costing him his life. uh, I'm not sure that that's the look. I don't know. Maybe I might have to sit with it for a second and see what I think. I kind of like the idea of this like starched white habit kind of thing sticking out, and I like the idea of them having long uh, shawls over them that like have writing inscribed on them and stuff, which is basically just like, to them it's a record of all their achievements and the things they've done. To the king, it's a shorthand, so that basically name tags, he can look at them and see what they're qualified to do. Like it lists all the trials that they've been through and all the spiritual realms of enlightenment that they've attained. To him, it's a certification that they've been trained in handling this machine and this. And okay, this is somebody I can give this task to because I can see his qualifications down his tapestry on his robe and know that he's qualified for this. Oh, we'll put rings on their sleeves as another shorthand for, like, this person is higher, has achieved a deeper rank of priesthood to everybody else, but to the king it means you know that they've achieved XYZ certification, you know and he can trust them to do whatever it is he needs them to do. Okay, I'm liking that idea. Something's missing, something's not quite right. I'm gonna have to keep playing around with this. Let's come over here and just start playing with some robe ideas. All right, let's draw out a person real quick. Just sketch out a form. And now let's start sketching out some robes. Okay, I definitely want that on them with the writing. And I definitely want the rings on the sleeves because I dig that. And oh man, you could even have some folks that have like really long sleeves because they've achieved lots of, you know, things. They've devoted more of their life to it and they've learned more about the technology. And so they like have to gather up their sleeves. Oh, that would be so cool to have to gather up all that sleeve that, shows all of your certification and whatnot. And then I wonder, should we do a mask? Like, oh, that would be brilliant. And like it's a big deal that you have to wear your ceremonial mask in front of the king and whatnot, and that those that don't humble themselves in front of the king should die. but really it's to keep you from breathing particles and stuff into the equipment. And you know, because I mean, like when you think about it, like sometimes he could be in this equipment for decades before he wakes up again because his minions are handling all the day-to-day ruling the kingdom kind of business for him, and he's put people in charge of different realms around the world to rule it. So he could sleep for a couple of decades and not have a problem. But if the people that are tending to his equipment, he's not really a germaphobe because this stuff can't really affect him. He's not really human anymore. Like he's a bunch of cosmic particles being held together in this field. But like if you come in breathing your funky breath all over this equipment, just like you have to wear, just like you would wear a respirator if you were working in a clean room building, smartphones. It's so you're not breathing crap out into this high tech machinery, getting droplets in microcircuitry that could cause, short outs. And like, if I breathe my funky breath onto this, nice clean equipment, and he's going to be sleeping for 20 years before he wakes up again, particles in that could grow into a fungus or whatever, a little bit of the mushroom pizza I ate could end up growing in this machinery and causing some kind of, catastrophic collapse down the road. And also, he doesn't want his attendants dying in a pandemic. Like a lot of what he's teaching them is not only for the protection of his equipment and himself, but he keeps his high priests healthy. They're not going to die off, and then he doesn't have to waste time trying to train a whole new group of people that that he's having to train his priests because they just don't have the capability of really understanding the technology that they're working with. But if he can teach them, this is a bunch of holy practices that you have to do, they will do those practices and not knowing why. But but the king is obvious. He's real. They see him, every generation has seen him, at some point or another. I really like the idea of those sleeves getting really long. I probably would need like a satchel and like a work belt kind of thing that's got tools and things on it to do your jobs. Some of them would probably have to have like backpacks or something. I don't know. Maybe the backpack's too much. Definitely liking the long sleeves. And like a layered robes that, like I said, they've got to clean themselves and put on. Probably wrapping their feet in clean linens before they come walking around, because everything in this is machinery. Like I like to think of the inside of this cave, like the inside of the cave from and what 3 was it or whatever with Richard Pryor, where it's just all giant computer everywhere, and so they're walking on computerized floors and stuff. And so yeah, they got to clean their feet. And oh man, I'm digging it. I'm not. The head needs something more eye-catching, something more iconic. Maybe if the hood came out further. Oh, I thought I was going to get this picture done quickly, but I need to figure this because they're going to be wearing these for a long time. And that's one thing I've committed myself to with Kaw is I've got a really bad habit of designing stuff on the page and not figuring it out in detail beforehand. And part of what's made all these characters look so much better is that I've taken the time to figure out the characters beforehand and do a couple different interpretations of them beforehand and really nail down the look and the colors and stuff before I'm putting them in the book. And these priests, even though they're a tertiary side character, they're going to be in the book a lot. And I want them to look right and I want them to have an iconic look to them. I've got to look for priests that I was really saving for something else, but this might be the time to use it. Makes me think of when I did work experience and went into the Norman apse of York Minster. It was a big cave full of machines with crystals growing on the walls. Oh, wow. Wow. I apologize for stumbling over some of your sentences. Uh, but y'all put some words together like York Minster that I know I've heard it 100 times, but like I'm not used to saying those words together. So when I see them, my mouth is like, wait a second. Norman apse of York Minster. Like those are not words that usually get put into a line like that I'm saying. So it took me a second. I apologize. Nothing against your writing. It's my reading. It's my reading out loud. Which there's another tip. I just realized I've been drawing all this stuff and y'all haven't been seeing it. I apologize. There's the design that I was working on. I didn't even realize that I had gone that far without switching back over again. I apologize. That was foolish of me. There's the design that I was working on with the long sleeves, and then the like scarves hanging down that'll have all of your information written on it. All that stuff. It's below the crypt of Minster. The public doesn't get to go into it, so I had to go through a locked crypt to get into it. Ooh, that sounds like a story. That sounds like a story somebody needs to hear. It sounds like a story other people probably don't need to hear. Let's try the chat overlay again to see if it'll work now, because I accidentally zoomed in on the wrong thing again. I was listening and drawing guts. I just assumed you kept switching back to it when I wasn't looking. No, I was just, that's what I are. I've had a look for a long time that I've been saving for priests that I've wanted to do, and this would be a good, what, man, I could add all those extra layers to it, like the stripes on the sleeves and stuff. But like these guys are so overladen with stuff proving, how holy and righteous they are, that they're just these giant mounds of clothing, and each one of the layers, signified another aspect of how holy they were and what they had accomplished, and they were just burdened down with each one of these, layers of cloth was another signifier of something they had accomplished, and something or other. And they would walk around with these boxes on their head of, scriptures and stuff to show how holy they were because they had it on there. Because that's something that like Jewish priests used to actually do back in the day, because God would say, to meditate on the scripture day and night and to have it on your mind. So, like, some of them would actually like strap a box to their forehead. They would have little bits of scripture. So they would always have scripture on their mind. So they're technically legally following the rules all the time by having it attached to their head. And, totally missing the point, which I think is kind of beautiful and beautifully sad. And, the constantly missing the point of it. And all these priests would have somebody following them, sometimes a group of people following them, like a whole line of people behind them, of like lesser priests earning their bones here. They would be carrying these long tapestries behind them that would be advertising, like, Hobart the humble. And, you've got six guys carrying banners behind you, testing to just how humble you are and how you're the most humble in the world. Nobody could be as humble as you. And, again, completely missing the point. But the idea of these guys being like the priests on the ground that are like recruiting people and telling everybody to be afraid of the God King and all of this, like, that could be really cool. I think this is too much for them to actively be able to work. Like, they'd be too burdened down to be able to work. But if like if there's one of them maybe in the lab, in his base, in charge of everybody else, telling everybody else what to do, and and then you're following the other people that are doing all the work, and he's just going around giving instructions, and maybe he's the one that's actually talking to the Quantum King and reading from the scrolls of what's happened, and he's an intermediary between this God King and man, telling all the other servants what to do. But I think I've been saving this look for years, waiting for the right story that was going to have enough impact to use it, because I really dig the look. And this is not the story I imagined using it in, but also I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I'm going to quit waiting for the magical story down the road that I want to be able to tell it in. And if I have pieces of stuff that I want to use, I'm going to start using it now, because we don't know how long we've got. And I don't want to hold on to some magical perfect and never get to use it. I would rather sprinkle little bits of awesome into everything that I'm working on now. And, maybe I get to tell the epic story someday. But if I don't, you'll get to see bits and pieces of it all over my work. It's probably why a lot of old religions say not to eat pork and shellfish. In a society with no refrigeration, both of those can be incredibly dangerous to eat. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, I think a lot of things are that way. But people forgot the original reason why not to eat them and just made it part of the belief structure. Like, take pork, for instance. I am a believer. I'm actually a ordained pastor. I can marry people the whole 9 yards, preach at churches, whatever. I'm just not right now. I am a believer, which a lot of people might find strange, but like, I don't believe the scripture says eating pork, is a sin and we shouldn't do it. I believe that instruction is for our health and for our betterment. I don't believe eating a piece of bacon is going to send you to hell. But I know for a fact eating a whole lot of bacon and hot dogs gives you a body like this, which is not best, which is not the best that God intended for us, which is not making me happier and healthier, and is a burden to my life and probably shortening my life. So if I had stayed away from eating swine, I would be in a lot better condition right now. I'd probably still be overweight because broken parts of my brain, but I would be healthier if I had done that. And I think a lot of those things are intended for our betterment, for our health, for our well-being, and kind of get construed more as God's going to hate anybody that does this. It's really more of, this way works really well, and will make you healthy. And if you plant your crops this way, they will produce better. And if you give the field the time to rest, you won't eat up all the nutrients in it and burn it out so that it won't make any more crops. And if you let some of the stuff fall to the ground and let the poor harvest it, then the poor are going to be quite so hungry. And there's a whole lot of stuff that's put in there just for the betterment of everybody to make us happier and healthier. And and we like to get it all twisted up as oh well, if they didn't do that, then they're going to burn in hell. And I don't think a lot of things were intended. I don't think most of what God does is intended as angrily as most of us want to interpret it. Because people are the people that have done the most damage to the Christian church are the Christians in the church, and it breaks my heart because we set such a bad example of anger and hate, and not love and generosity and grace that's been poured out on us. Pork without refrigeration has a very large chance of giving you botulism poisoning, which is probably why it was said to start with. Yeah. And and then there's worms and all kinds of things that are tough to deal with without refrigeration and clean processing facilities and things like that. And an animal that lives its entire life in filth like that is a whole lot harder to process clean in your backyard than at a processing plant. But also hasn't done me a whole lot of good. But I digress. That's neither here or there in the world of call. Anyhow, I've just topped out at over an hour, and my lovely wife is off today, and she's home, so I would like to get to do some stuff with her today, her day off a little bit. And so I'm going to do that a little bit and probably work a little bit too. But anyway, thank you, Katie, for hanging out. I'm glad Kyron could come join us for a hot minute. And who else was in here for a second? Or am I imagining things? Did you pop in? No, just Kyron and Katie. Okay. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your belief in me. And anyway, I will see you Tuesday if I don't see you before. And I'll be on 5 Star Fridays tomorrow evening. So anyway, love you. Have a great day. Peace out. Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again for School of Fish Art Stream. J-Man wants a Gatling gun on the end of his tail. Oh my goodness. J-Man says the tail's where you put all the heavy artillery. Yeah. He said he used to have a howitzer on the end of his tail.